Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. It is 5:18 a.m. East Coast time, Sunday, September 1st. And to me, since cuts were made yesterday at 4 p.m. Eastern time to get down to your 53 main rosters, to me, it is now officially week one of the regular season. So what am I going to do? I'm going to update the first look lineup that I did 2 weeks ago because a lot has already changed in terms of cuts, retirements, injuries. I'm going to be doing a first look lineup today in terms of a cash lineup. I'm excited that you all are here. A couple of things to quickly announce. Welcome to the channel if you're new. There's a great chance this video is going to reach thousands of new people. I'm so excited for the NFL season. Since the last time you saw me, if you were returning just for the NFL season, I went from about 100 subscribers to now just almost 7,000 on the back of the NBA and the MLB season. So I appreciate it. If you get any value from this video or any throughout the week, I'm going to be releasing pretty much a weekly video, going to be going live for the Monday night, the Thursday night football before lock showdown slates. I'm going to go live Sunday at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. Eastern time, so make sure to set your clocks, all that. I'm going to be on this channel at least once a day, potentially twice a day, and I'm so excited for this NFL season. We've grown a ton, so hit that subscribe button if you can, and yes, hit the like button if you can as well. Down below, there's a lot of free guides. Free guides are down below. My NFL Daily Fantasy course, it's a course to teach you how to play daily fantasy and make these spreadsheets, actually win money doing it, because you all know that you're hitting the deposit button if you're watching this video way too often. That's linked down below for $50 off until next Sunday. And then I have a Patreon down below. What you get in my Patreon is just more exclusive content, a Patreon exclusive live stream. You get my articles, you get my rankings, you get all of my stat sheets, which I'm very excited to show you this. The target offense sheet is back. We'll be referencing that in the Tuesday video or Monday. I'm not sure when I'm going to release it yet. Very excited for this week. Probably Monday this week, Tuesday next week. And then this right here. So I cleared out my interests, I cleared out my notes, but these are going to be for every single position. We'll talk about it through a stats database that I've created. We'll talk about it through just something that you can be more informed about instead of somebody just sitting on a screen and going, I think he'll be good. He might be able to fall into the end zone. No, we're not doing that bullshit, okay? Not this year. Nobody's doing that. So good information is what we want to do. So this is exciting, but for right now, let's have some fun. Let's look at the target offense sheet for the Vegas odds. Some, at least from last year, the DVPs, right? We can't really reference this year's because we don't have data yet. But last year's we'll reference loosely in terms of DVP, defense versus position, right here. We'll reference it loosely because we know that some defenses and a lot of them have made adjustments. We know that some defenses and a lot of them have lost players. So it's going to be all different as is every year. Defenses regress. Even the number one overall defense, the Jaguars from 2 years ago, regressed to number 6. And that was like lucky. Most defenses regress 8 spots than they were the year before moving their delta. So let's do this. Let's build a cash lineup and a couple of things just to talk about before we get into it. And a lot of this is mentioned in the Daily Fantasy course in depth. But cash lineups are no longer just play all the chalk in the world and hope to print money. No, the NFL DFS community, players, people like myself and others are making such good content, and some of it's even free. Like myself, hit the subscribe button, bang, 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 a little self-promotion there. But it's not easy to just play the cash and the chalk in every spot. Now, if there's a dirt cheap running back, like we had in Spencer Ware last year when Kareem Hunt got suspended, he was like, what, 4,600, I think? If you remember the price, let me know. It might have been 4,600. Then yes, in the Chiefs offense, the best offense in the league last year, that makes sense to be playing him all the time. But if you're just playing Cortland Sutton and cash last year because Emmanuel Sanders gets hurt and now every beat writer has hype on Sutton and every bad football analyst in the industry has hype on Sutton, when Sutton wasn't even the guy seeing a role change. He wasn't going to see any difference. He was still going to run his terrible routes that he couldn't see breakaway on the outside. It was Deshaun Hamilton in the slot filling in for Emmanuel Sanders. It's the person seeing a role change that matters for cash and tournaments. So playing those types of guys when they're going to be 40%, 50% owned in cash and just have 2 catches for like 30 yards in Cortland Sutton that week, there's a lot of better options that you can get to. So I'm not saying be contrarian in cash because I don't think you have to be at that point just yet. But I think that thinking a little bit more about your upside in a tournament or in cash is now coming into play. Adam Levitan said this, I believe last year he started saying this, that the floor has always mattered in cash, right? With the security, the floor, what can you bank on from a player? Nobody really worried too much about the ceiling. That was mainly a tournament thing. This year, I'm focusing a ton, yes, on the floor still. I don't want to just be playing dusty old players that I don't think can do anything. But I also want players that maybe they have a little bit less of a floor, not totally nothing, but they have a lot of upside because it's getting too competitive in the NFL streets. Now, I still think if you're playing at the $10 and below stakes, that you can clean house. I still am able to play at that. Professionals are not. If you've won like over $1 million on the site, I have not. But yeah, if you're playing at the $10 or the $5 and below stakes, yeah, it's still so easy just to clean because people are coming to this video looking for a lineup thinking that that's going to save all their financial problems and everything, and they're just crazy and you're a bunch of bums if you're doing that, just to be completely honest. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have some fun. We're just going to go through each position, and I'm just going to put in players that I think stand out, and don't take that as, oh, this is who Sal's playing this week. No, there's a week until the games start. I got a lot of research to be doing this week. I've got a lot of ownership to be looking at. Also, if you're a Patreon, you will get some hints and teases at ownership projections from FanShare. I'm excited to announce that. I will also be going live Tuesdays and Thursdays. This is my first time ever announcing this. Tuesdays and Thursdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time on Awesomo's channel as a guest host on this strategy show. So I'm excited about that. Lots going on. There's a couple other things I want to announce, but just not yet. So we're going to be going position by position. This does not mean these are the people that I'm going to be playing in my cash lineup. Nowhere near it, because I don't decide my cash lineup until Friday night, Saturday afternoon, somewhere in there. But let's start it off. Andrew Luck retiring clearly makes Jacoby Brissett in play for cash, but not somebody I'm going to get to. $4,400 is very cheap, but we're on a slate where we have too much value everywhere else, right? So he's dirt cheap. If this was week 6 and everybody's pricing was a little bit tighter, and what I mean by tighter is more efficient, you have just so much cheap pricing because players are priced at where they were 6 weeks ago. Players have now moved up depth charts. Players have now retired, like you see here, injuries, whatever it might be. So Brissett at 4,400, this is fantastic any other week in really any other matchup. Like I know Derwin James is not going to be playing week 1 for the Chargers, but they're still one of the best secondaries in the entire league with their cornerbacks, and then still one of the best pass rushers, overall one of the best defenses in the league. 4,400 is a very good price tag. I won't hate you if you get to him in cash. I would just much rather get to other quarterbacks who are also cheap, because I think you can get to them easily due to the fact that there's so many cheap wide receivers, so many cheap running backs. Cam Newton is somebody that I want to keep an eye on. I think stacking for tournaments is very much in play with him, and especially since he has this little bit of an ankle injury that apparently is going to be completely fine, the questionable tag is going to lower his ownership significantly. So Jameis still stands out. Baker still stands out. The total for Russell Wilson in Seattle, if we go back here to the target offense sheet, is very high. The total right now in Seattle is standing at, as I look at this quickly, it's standing at a team total of or a game total of 43, a team total for Seattle of 26. Now these odds might have moved a little bit. I updated this about a week ago or so. So obviously Indianapolis is going to be different, but a decent sized team total for Seattle. Seattle just had to cut Jerome Brown, their number 2 wide receiver. So there's going to be value in the wide receivers in Seattle. Not only Tyler Lockett, who's going to be an absolute monster in the slot when he gets to play that much more in there, as they've been saying, but some other wide receivers on the outside. This is going to benefit guys like Chris Carson, who are going to just see already naturally more pass attempts since Mike Davis was gone, and they already said he's the number 1 3-down back. The gap between him and Rashad Penny during the preseason was so wide. If you were drafting Rashad Penny in any of your season-long leagues, you're an absolute just person who hasn't been paying attention, crazy person. You have to drop him immediately. So no interest in Wilson's game total is interesting, so maybe, but I'm very interested this week in paying down at quarterback. So like I like Winston, and I might get there at 66. I might get the Cam at 65, definitely in GPPs. But paying down at quarterback is just so friendly this week. Like 6,000 or below, these are the guys that I love. Lamar Jackson. Only downside is he's playing in a game that doesn't have the greatest of implied totals this week. When you go to his team total, it's 21.25. Not terrible, but nowhere near good. Phillip Rivers has a very good implied team total against Indianapolis. He has one of the best on the slate, 5,900. He's coming in with a healthy Hunter Henry. He's coming in with an overall healthy team. No Tyrell Williams, but Mike Williams should be completely fine in that new offense. Dak Prescott, $5,900. He's been shredding the preseason. Dak is going to be one of the best season-long QBs and one of the best overall cheap quarterbacks every week of the year in DFS. If you have not watched the preseason or camp, Dak Prescott has been shredding, absolutely shredding. Now, Zeke Elliott, depending on when you're watching this, he might have already signed, but he is due to sign over the next week or so. So, yes, I am extremely excited to play Dak Prescott as much as I can this year. Kyler Murray is going to be the hype machine. I imagine lots of hype builds. Some fell off of it due to some poor preseason play, but then he got back on the horse in week 3 and played fine. 5,600 is very cheap. Keep this in mind, though. Detroit played at one of the slowest paces in the league last year, and we can look at the target offense sheet to look at that. You can get this target offense sheet down below on my Patreon. It'll be part of that package. But Detroit in this game, if we're going off a pace from last year, which we know that Arizona played at a very slow pace, and they want to play at the fastest pace, Cliff Burry's already said that. Detroit really didn't change anything in their offense for me to think that they're going to play at a faster pace. Same head coach in Patricia, same running backs for the most part. Kerryon Johnson now just taking over more of the load out there, but you have C.J. Anderson, so it's going to be interesting to see if they play faster. I'm not interested in getting to Kyler Murray in week 1 for cash purposes. So many guys down here. Kirk Cousins is down here at 5,500. It is so much upside. I can't even tell you how much upside that there is down here. I have a lot of interest in a lot of these guys, so let's just pick one, right? Just to start this build off, let's go to, let's do $5,900 Dak Prescott. And you're going to say, what, you're playing Dak? Yes, I'm playing Dak. The man's looked absolutely incredible. Do I think I'm going to get to him at the end of the week in cash? Honestly, probably not, but we'll see. Right now, Dallas is implied for an overall 26.75 team implied total by Vegas. That is the third highest on the slate. That's only behind, well, we're already up, don't worry about it. That's only behind, or that's the fourth highest. That's only, no, it's third highest, tied for it. It's only behind the Chiefs. It's only behind Philly, which, yes, Carson Wentz is also somebody that I should actually look into a little bit more. Now we get to the fun part, though. Carson Wentz at 5,700. Let's go there. Is there a player, though, when I think about this, that I would want to stack on Philly with Wentz? Clearly, Ertz comes to mind, but do I want to go there when there's cheaper options? This is the part that starts to become hard. Lamar Jackson is the best quarterback to be drafting in your season-long leagues. You're getting him in the 8th to 9th to 10th round. So right here, guys that stand out are Dak, Carson, Wentz, all these guys. We can go to Wentz at home against the Washington secondary that was struggling a ton last year. They got Clinton Dix towards the end of the year, or at least they got Clinton Dix, and really that's a downgrade in my opinion. So Carson Wentz, $5,700. We'll start with there because I think he's very cheap for a guy who has the second highest team total on the slate at 27.5, a guy that played at an average pace last year. Both of these teams played at around an average pace last year. Now a new running back, new running regime. They cut Josh Adams. They cut Wendell Smallwood. Seems like Miles Sanders is poised to take a further step in this backfield. But keep in mind, Jordan Howard, Darren Sproles still there. Corey Clement's still there. It's nothing that's locked in. Running back. So I'm going about this as if Zeke's playing week 1 because Zeke will be playing week 1. And if you were lucky enough to get Zeke as the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th overall pick in your fantasy draft, you're a very smart person. You've been listening to me all year long. He is the number 1 running back in fantasy football season-long leagues. And the fact that people were scared that he wasn't going to play this year is I guess, okay. I never bought into it. There's no sense in his contract that makes sense for him not to play this year like it did with Le'Veon Bell. There was leverage to an extent with Le'Veon Bell. With Zeke, there's still leverage in terms of he's a good player. But he's the one who's going to cave first in this situation every single time. Now they probably will come to some sort of compromise. Maybe he'll get paid as the highest back in the league. I don't think so, but we'll see. Probably will. It's not the same situation for people saying that it was. With that said, I think that the way to go this week and the way that everybody's going to go, and just keep this in mind, whatever everybody does is usually wrong. So everybody's going to go this week to the cheap running backs. Now that doesn't seem wrong on the surface, but let's just talk about a couple of them. Cheap running backs meaning guys at like 6K and below. I like a couple of guys here. I love, obviously, Dalvin Cook. You get Dalvin Cook against Atlanta last year. Atlanta against the running back last year, if we highlight this section. They were giving up, and they weren't giving up the most fantasy points in the league, although people thought they were. They were giving up a lot of passes to running backs, but they weren't giving up the most fantasy points in the league to the running back position. On Draftkings, they gave up 30 fantasy points per game to the running back position last year, but that wasn't the most. That was the 4th most, believe it or not. The Chiefs gave up 30.9. The Bengals gave up 31.7. That led the entire league. And then you get Detroit was giving up, or Arizona was giving up 31.5. Arizona's defense is still terrible. But I'm going to have interest in Dalvin Cook, not only because he's facing Atlanta. If he was in a neutral matchup, I'd have interest in him at $6,000. This is a borderline first-round pick, high second-round pick in fantasy leagues right now that is not being treated as if he's that valuable. He looked completely healthy in the last, 4 games last year after he came back from the injury, sat out almost the entire year with that injury, played very limited snaps in some of the games. He looks absolutely dominant in the preseason, 1 carry or 2 carries for like 80-plus yards. In practice, in camp, he's looked great. He seems to be fully healthy. Now he's facing a team that, for the most part, has not cured their pass-catching woes, at least from a running back out of the backfield. And really, not many teams are going to be able to. You can't focus on a running back out of the backfield all that much. You can't put extra protection on him because then you're so vulnerable in other spots. So Dalvin Cook is going to be a clear guy for me. Second guy is going to be Chris Carson. If you've been living under a rock, which I'm sure many people have, you haven't been grinding during the preseason. People who think preseason doesn't matter are idiots. I'll say that right up front. The preseason matters so much. I would say 100x the knowledge of the regular football, probably more than the regular football person just coming in this week. But I'll get people in the comments, very hateful people going, I have more knowledge than you, I'm older than you. Now, I put in the past month or so, about 5-6 weeks or so actually, about 40 to 50 hours a week, easily a week, in terms of studying the preseason, studying roster tendencies, players, individual players. I put in 24 hours just for the last 16-game preseason slate. Chris Carson is going to be one of the best values for people who got him earlier in the summer at like 7 or 8. Now he's going in like the 4th round, 3rd round in some spots. If you have Rashad Penny on your fantasy team, just drop him. The guy's a dust. He's dust. He's not playing this year. He's terrible. He's going to be dropping to 3rd on the depth chart pretty soon, and then he'll be cut pretty soon. Chris Carson right now, the gap between him and Penny is so wide for the backup job. Chris Carson is going to be the 3-down back in Seattle, a team that no longer has Mike Davis, a team that already has said Chris Carson is going to catch the ball more, a team that threw 25% of the time to the running back position, and a couple more things. Let's look at the target offense sheet. Seattle, as we mentioned, they have a high implied team total this week against Cincinnati. They have a 26.5 implied team total. That's the 4th highest on the slate. A couple more things. Cincinnati last year gave up the most points to the running back position, 31.7. Now, Cincinnati did some things in the draft to sort of improve on this for sure, but I don't think it's going to be being worse in the league to first in the league, or being worse in the league to being one of the best in the league all that quickly, especially not in week 1. I'm going to take Chris Carson and the guy who I believe is going to become more of a 3-down goal line pass catching back, one of those elite backs in the league in terms of the usage, and you're getting him at 5,700 week 1. Absolute monster. So more guys. So wide receiver position, Chris Godwin. Nothing has changed from 2 weeks ago. I'm putting Chris Godwin into all of my lineups probably this week in tournaments. I do not care. This man at 6,200. We might not see him below $7,000 another time this year. I get it. Mike Evans is out there, but there's more than enough mouths to go to feed out there. You have OJ Howard. You have Chris Godwin. You have Mike Evans. They don't have a running back. So Ronald Jones Jr. They have Dara Ogunbowale. If you don't know who Ogunbowale is, he's probably going to end up getting a lot of significant run later in the season or within a couple of weeks on this team. Peyton Barber is pretty much dust. You have Ronald Jones Jr., who's come in better shape, but he's been dealing with some knee soreness and inflammation this preseason, so that's scary. And for the most part, he was dust last year. So you get Derek Ogunbowale. So when I say all that just pretty much sums up to they don't have a running game still. And Bruce Arians is going to just throw this ball all over the field. OJ Howard is very much in play. You have Mike Evans very much in play. And honestly, paying up at wide receiver might be the way to go this week in terms of tournaments, because everybody's going to pay down at running back or mid-range running back, get up to an expensive guy. Everybody's going to pay down mid-range and cheap at wide receiver. Everybody's going to spend up for Patty Mahomes, or they're going to spend up for Travis Kelce. And everybody's going to have the same exact lineup in tournaments. You already knew that you were doing this. You probably already have. Just know that you can get chalky-ish in tournaments, but if you're playing every single person that everybody has, the level of difficulty to just leap people in tournaments and win is very hard. For cash, doesn't matter as much, but upside is there. Chris Godwin, 6,200, fantasy darling all preseason, fantasy darling all offseason for a lot of people that were paying attention and are savvy in the industry. He's going to be a monster. He ran a snap on every single one of Jameis Winston's dropbacks in the preseason. Over 2/3 of those, he was out of the slot. If you do not know about the slot for wide receivers, it is by far the best spot for a talented wide receiver and a big wide receiver to be in. A couple of reasons why. They could use more of the field. Instead of running on the outside and only being able to run straight, right? Or maybe they run a crossing route deep. There's not much versatility for their skill set there, whereas in the middle of the field, they have the entire open field, including the middle of the field to go down, where safeties are usually helping on the outside guys, like with a Mike Evans. Also, you're just a bigger wide receiver facing probably the 3rd or 4th string quarterback in the slot for that team. It's just overall a really good matchup for Chris Godwin. He's going to be talented. He saw loads of looks on Jameis Winston's, 4 quarters of play in the 4 preseason games total. Lots of looks. He saw double-digit targets. He caught a touchdown week 1. He caught 6 passes week 3 when they saw extended run into the late into the second quarter and early into the third quarter, if I remember so. So Chris Godwin, the guy's just going to be dominant. Penn Stater myself, probably a little bit biased, but yeah, it's really hard to get away from that. Wide receiver is actually a very interesting spot this week, because let's look at this guy who I'm very curious what people's thoughts are going to be on him. Damian Willis, nobody knows about him. None of you know about him. He's flat price at $3,000. He is starting week 1. He got the starting job week 1 for the Bengals in AJ Green's absence. So you can have Tyler Boyd probably on the other hash, probably in the slot. Damian Willis out there, and then you're going to have, and then you'll have some other guys. The tight end you'll have. I don't know why I can't remember the. 1 second as I just look up the team now, because I can't remember wide receivers out there for some reason. Yes, John Ross. John Ross is questionable, so that's actually going to be even more helpful for Damian Willis, and would bring Leif Erickson into play, Eric Erickson into play. Damian Willis, not somebody I'm going to put in cash lineup right now, but in terms of tournaments, keep an eye on Damian Willis at $3,000 flat price. If indeed there's also no John Ross, it's going to be a lot of interest in Tyler Boyd, but also Damian Willis. And as we talk about that, load up $5,800 Tyler Boyd, as Sal talks about him. It's just as simple. Like, you're probably not going to have John Ross. You definitely don't have. He's doubtful already. Probably not going to play for 3 to 4 to 5 weeks. You shouldn't draft him in season longs, in my opinion. Is AJ Green, a guy who he's dealing with an injury that usually lingers all season long for wide receivers and usually hampers their ability to play at full strength all season long until it's fully healed. They'll come back week 3 or 4 prematurely. They'll re-aggravate it, or they'll just play on half speed all season long. I'm not making that up. That is Dr. Chow. That is other football doctors in the industry saying that. Tyler Boyd is going to be a guy who we've seen him in the preseason getting elite usage out of the slot, similar to Chris Godwin. I want talented wide receivers out of the slot. Now, Tyler Boyd is not going to be on nearly as good of an offense in terms of their overall efficiency, but he does have familiarity with Andy Dalton. If we look at Cincinnati's implied total, team total, it's very low. It's like the lowest on the slate right now at 16.5. So Tyler Boyd, in terms of cash, is a guy who's very susceptible to leave this first look lineup, but for now he's going to stay in there. This is what I want. In cash, I want running backs who are going to catch the ball, who are going to get 15 to 20 touches on the ground and have 5 to 10 targets in the air. Chris Carson, Dalvin Cook fit that bill for me. Chris Godwin, Tyler Boyd, I want guys who are going to go from 8 to 12 targets and have touchdown upside. Chris Godwin, Tyler Boyd are definitely those types of players, especially Chris Godwin. He's going to be an absolute red zone monster this year. Now at wide receiver, you can go anywhere. I'm probably going to want to pay up towards the end of the week at wide receiver here. Keenan Allen at 7,300 seems very, very sexy to me. This is why. He's 7,300, which is too cheap. In terms of tournaments, he's going to be a fantastic play because people are going to be too busy going down here, and I already know it. Like, I know all the cheap, good wide receivers. Everybody's going to tell me that I don't. I know that Cooper Kupp is coming back from an injury, and he's only $5,700. I know that Dante Pettis is an absolute bum, and some people are still in my mentions saying that he's going to be really good this year when I don't think he's going to be, as he slid down that depth chart. But as we go down here, D.D. Westbrook at 4,800. People are overreacting, but for good reason, to him and Nick Foles' connection in week 3 of the preseason, where he had like 10 targets in like a half. He looked absolutely dominant. Now he's facing the Chiefs, which, again, not the greatest of defenses. As we keep going down, there's going to just be so much upside. You have Michael Gallup and potentially Amari not playing week 1. Even if he plays, Michael Gallup has looked very good in the preseason. Jamison Crowder, who they're saying is going to catch 100 balls this year. No, I don't think that's even going to be close to what he does, but he'll have probably 100 targets in the slot, and he looked good in the preseason. Other guys, Adam Humphries, who had a clear connection all throughout camp in week 1 of the preseason, didn't really play much of the rest of the preseason, but he had 6 targets on 8 of Mariota's pass attempts. I'm just worried about overall the matchup for Humphries, and the offense does not look good coming out of Tennessee right now in any capacity. I would be very scared to own Derrick Henry for positive game scripts and all of that. Humphries at $4,000 though is a fantastic play in cash. We'll see if we want to get there, but right now Keenan Allen stands out a little bit more. Marquise Goodwin, Deebo Samuel, these other San Fran wide receivers who for some reason are $4,000. They should be more expensive than Dante Pettis, in my opinion. Yeah, so we keep going down. Cole Beasley, I had a question about him at 3,600. Cole Beasley seems okay against the Jets. It's a fine matchup, nothing great by any means. He seems okay at 3,600. I think people are overreacting to the 2 drives that he played on with Josh Allen, where Allen targeted him like 6 or 7 times on those 2 drives, and he caught like 5 balls. I'm not going to overlook that. I'm not going to dig into that all that much. Keep an eye on A.J. Brown's name, not right now, but moving forward. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside's another eye to keep on. Terry McLaurin is very interesting. He is regarded as being the number 1 or number 2 wide receiver in this offense, aside from Paul Richardson. You're going to have Trey Quinn in the slot, probably. Terry McLaurin, the rookie, he's going to be on the outside. 3,300, he's more of a tournament play, but he's somebody to keep your eye on moving forward. Yeah, let's keep Keenan Allen in here right now. The other guy actually that I didn't talk about, that I talked about in my previous video, Curtis Samuel, 4,200 is just dirt cheap. Curtis Samuel is regarded to be the number 1 wide receiver on this team right now. He's going to be facing the Rams, who for the most part were not that great last year. The only problem is their overall implied team total has dropped a little bit. It's 23.75 as of 2 weeks ago. With the Cam injury, it's dropped to like 21, which isn't the greatest by any means. I know what you're saying. You're saying, why aren't you stacking with Carson Wentz? Well, we're going to get there. We still got the tight end position to cover, right? Okay, so here we go. This is where I would stack with Carson Wentz if I was going to. I would go to Zach Ertz here in my tight end slot. And let's just throw a random defense, middle of the pack defense in here just for now. Defense that seems nice, obviously. Where are the Chargers? They're probably going to be well too cheap. The Chargers are well too cheap because their price is if they're facing Andrew Luck and not Jacoby Brissett. And then you have $4,200 for flex. So I always like putting running backs in my flex fit position. It just gives you so much more upside when they're a pass-catching running back who's dual threat abilities. So let's change a couple of things here because I don't want the Carson Wentz. I don't want to pay up for tight end week 1. I don't even think Zach Ertz, if Dallas Goedert is healthy, is going to be, I'm not going to say that good this year, but nowhere near the expectations that people had for him last year. It's just not there. Let's go to Dak Prescott. So we're paying up a little bit more at tight end, and I'm going to pair Dak Prescott with somebody else here. Let's go with Zeke. I'm going to put Zeke in here against the Giants, who right now, the Giants last year were terrible at defending the running back position. If we go to the Giants, overall last year, they played at a higher pace. Right now you have Dallas, who's going up against the Giants, who gave up 27.9 fantasy points per game. That's top 6 in the league, or bottom 6, top 6 in favor of if you're playing Zeke. And they're going to be at a 26.75 implied team total. I'm going to just stack Dak with Zeke. I do not see why not. Now we only have $900 left to spend on our tight end position. Don't worry about it. I'm going to be going down at the wide receiver position. So let's go to tight end here. Let's find a cheap tight end. We have $4,100 to spend at each spot, and we could easily do that, in my opinion. You're going to have Hunter Henry, who looks very good in this offense, seems to be doing well in camp at $3,900. We could easily slot him in there. Evan Ingram at $4,800 against Dallas for sort of a mini game stack seems fantastic. Now, the problem is if we play Evan Ingram, only $3,400. I don't want to do that. The guys that I'm probably going to choose from on the cheap end, Delaney Walker looks very good, and against Cleveland, Cleveland has now for many years in a row been terrible against the tight end position. So if we find Cleveland here, or if we find Tennessee, last year against the tight end position, they gave up 15.3. They gave up the most points in 2017-2018 season against the tight end. Last year, they came in and gave up the third most points per game. Now, the defense is clearly improving, but it is still kind of has a hole in this spot. So give me Delaney Walker against Cleveland, this team that is very terrible. And now we get the wide receiver position where we have $4,700 to spend. And there's a couple guys in this range who I think are fine. You can go to Michael Gallup here and you can get even more of a stack. You can have Dak, Michael Gallup, Zeke, even more of a stack on that side of it. I'm going to go to Curtis Samuel, I think, and I'll just leave $500 on the table. If you want to come up at defense, you can. I think I feel comfortable right now with the defense that I do have in terms of the Chargers against Jacoby Brissett. So this is where I'm at right now. I feel comfortable with this as a cash lineup. I feel comfortable not so much with the tournament lineup, but one thing I will point out, I left $500 on the table. Leaving money on the table in cash for me this year. If I think I have a good lineup, I'm not forcing the extra money in. A lot of views will go, oh, I have $500 left. Who can I get to? Who can I get to a quarterback with an extra $500? I can get to Baker. Oh, I'm going to Baker. And you'll do that. And you'll find somebody to stack him with. No, I feel absolutely confident with Dak Prescott, a guy who's looked so dynamite in camp this year in the preseason small sample that he had there. So this is where I'm at for cash. Again, don't just plug in this lineup and play it. I'm not going to be playing this as my cash game lineup. I can already tell you that. There's pieces to it that I'm looking at and I would rather change, but I'm not going to sit here for hours. My cash lineup is something that I mold around Saturdays in the week. I'll be doing my tiers article throughout the week in terms of each position rankings. I'll be talking about where I'm focusing on cash, or I'm focusing on in tournaments as the week goes on. I'll do a subscriber-only stream on Patreon. My NFL Daily Fantasy course is $50 off only for the rest of the week. All that is linked down below. If you watched the whole video, let me know. I appreciate it. We're going to have way more videos. I cannot wait to release this stuff right here. Target offense sheet will be up on Patreon this week. Make sure to go and get it. This is going to be what we're covering for every single position starting probably tomorrow or Tuesday. It's going to be very in-depth. It's going to be where my interests lie at the beginning of the week. We'll come back on Friday and we'll talk about our final interests. Very stats-based. We're not just sitting here, just not with anything backing it up and giving you terrible information. I'm here to give you good information. So my name's Sal. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hit the subscribe button before you leave. Peace out, gang.
Hey, hold up. 1 second. Check out this page. If you haven't yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button, all right? And if you're interested in Patreon, if you're not already a patron, you can hit that button on Patreon, become a patron. It will take you right there. You can also check me out on Twitter at SalVetriDFS. And hey, if you're interested, this next video that's about to pop up, why don't you check it out as well. See ya.